Hey everyone, Exaggeration here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Okay, so what I've started to do is, I guess, draw more realistically a little bit. The style's there, especially, in images like this. But I'm letting things go a bit more, realistic as well, if they need to. So something I'm kind of realizing, or at this time I'm realizing that, is that style is nice, and there is a part where you pretty much stylize everything, and that's kind of a stage I wanted to get to. But you really need knowledge as well, and I kind of forgot that for a little while. I mean, not completely, but just thinking about how I still have to go back to reality and maybe leave style out of it for a while in order to learn new things. And then here, what I did is I did this by accident. I just smudged this ink with my finger. And then I thought, oh, that looks kind of cool. It's kind of soft. And so I took ink and I just drew on my finger and made a mark, and then I used my finger to create a soft, gradient thing, and then I could do that, and it was like, oh, so you can use ballpoint pen and get these kinds of soft, almost painterly things, and I thought that was pretty interesting, so I went kind of overboard with that, I guess. Put some here. See, it's not perfect because it depends on how the ink goes on your finger. On this guy's nose. And here. But it's okay. I mean, I got some shading on the breasts and the face and the shoulders, and that's just with pen. So, hey, that's a thing that can be done. Around this time, actually, this month, I moved to a different town. So I was seeing different faces than I had seen before. And a lot more people in the town I currently live in. It's called Princeton. And there's a lot more mustaches and beards going on in the townsfolk. It's a small town, only like 2,000 people. But so seeing these different faces. I was trying to do some cats and just, I don't know. I wonder if I started here and then went this way, because these seem better than these. That one's terrible, though. I feel really embarrassed just at how bad I can be when I don't know what I'm doing. With faces, I've kind of figured it out, so, I mean, it still can get better, of course, but it's not such a big disparity between what's in my head and what comes out on the page, or at least something good looking. But with other things, it's really not there. So again, I'm letting things become a bit more natural, and I'm finding that a lot of how I draw tends to be, I mean, I've known this for a while, but it tends to be a lot more squiggly and scribbly. And I'm trying to work with that rather than make everything too sharp. It's that I really like sharp things, but I have to make sure I put that on top of a foundation that may be very squiggly. This lady seems to be wafting a fart. Okay. Sure. All right. So working on this type of transition, you can see what I mean when I was talking about how I'm more confident with the faces. So you see how much more clean this is with the face, and even the neck. It's like, oh, okay, you kind of know what you're doing. You've got more experience. You can adjust this, exaggerate this, simplify this. But then with the body, no, you don't really know what you're doing. You don't have the same amount of mileage. You haven't understood these things. And so for myself, I'm trying to stylize things. Like, okay, make things sharp, but I don't know what I'm doing because I just don't have enough experience. So that's definitely something that needs to be worked on and overcome. So still playing around, doing some stuff from real life reference. I'm imagining this one and this one are from reference. Actually, maybe this one too. Not sure. Maybe this one. Maybe this one. But yeah. And I tend to do stuff from reference and then stuff from imagination that gets a bit more crazy. Here I was thinking about the coil technique and just trying to draw a rabbit-like creature, but use coils to indicate the volumes of this form. And here I'm thinking a lot about very basic shapes. So with this one, I started to think about how the head is very narrow, and so the body reflects that. And I think it kind of worked, so this is a good direction. At least I feel that way. And so here I'm going kind of more into the style thing. I guess it's a back and forth between, some shapes that are very, random, but you can still make something appealing out of it. And here I was trying to think more in terms of triangles. Okay, he's got a triangular head, triangular hair, triangular clothes. And this guy, by contrast, is more rounded. I don't know what shape you'd call this, but tube-like person. And this guy's very tall and narrow, so that's reflected throughout the body. And I think I was getting a sense of the body should reflect the face. So if the face is doing something, if the face is very chunky, then the body should also be chunky, which kind of makes sense. I mean, your head is still part of your body. So if you're very thin and bony in your face, chances are you're thin and bony throughout your whole body. So recognizing that is an important thing. And I don't think I fully understand it yet, but I will. I'll get there. I kind of like this face, even though it's small and just off to the side. I don't know what this is. I guess he's a DJ. Clearly, I have no idea what I'm doing. Just from imagination. And then, yeah. Here I'm experimenting with much thinner bodies, much bigger head. And still pushing things, how can I make this? So I guess I drew this first and then just thinking about how can I make that more stylized. So he's got this sloping forehead and just take it straight into the nose. Simplify things. And yeah, there's a bird creature, little character. Going more cartoony. I kind of don't mind it though, cartoony things. So that's something that I'm trying to accept because I guess I had a bias towards anime stuff. I find it cool and I find cool things appealing. And then when things are cartoony and whimsical and funny, I like them, but a part of me, I suppose, feels like, no, I want to do cool things, not just silly things. And I suppose there was the sense that if you draw something cool, you have skill. But if you, anyone can draw something ugly and silly and it's not that good in a way. I don't know where I got this idea. And I'm saying these ideas, they're not ideas I've had for a while, but I had them when I was young and I sort of subconsciously carried them through even into adulthood and learning to question a lot of these things. This guy's kind of nice, but it's very angular and I feel like maybe it's too much. There's not enough curves in here. Trying to put someone on a surface, bringing perspective into things, and then this guy just got very blocky. So still experimenting a lot. Kind of like this one, has a very basic gesture to it. This one I feel, the head isn't working with the body. I'll figure it out eventually, but it's much more simple in here and much more complicated here than it needs to be. So that's something I should have caught. And here I'm really allowing myself to go a lot more round with my shapes. Just never mind, it doesn't have to be anything. I'm not going to push things towards being pointy or being sharp or being boxy or anything. I'm just going to just draw however feels most comfortable in that instance and then see what happens. Here it's kind of one of those days where I kind of want to do something, kind of want to draw someone, pulling or holding a bow, and then I guess maybe this didn't work out at all, and then this one, a second attempt, but again, it didn't work out. A lot of days are just like this, where I start and I don't know what I want to draw. I don't even know if I want to draw, but of course I will draw because I draw every day. And then it's, okay, what's an idea? I suppose someone with a weapon or someone doing something. And I don't exactly have an image in my head because I can't, I don't have visual memory, but I do have a feeling of an image, more like a narrative. Like, oh, it would be cool if someone was holding this thing and it looked cool, but I don't know what that looks like. But if I did, I think that would be nice. And here I started to really come to terms with the fact that I don't understand the body well enough. And it's not about style, I just don't understand the body well enough. I kind of have a sense of things, but I don't have enough mileage to simplify things as easily as I do with faces. See, with faces, I can do this and it's sort of a no-brainer, or these things. Like I can manipulate the face any way I want. And with the body, it just feels like, no, I can't. So I thought, I'm not going to focus on the heads. And actually, I did these faces after because it's kind of creepy to me just drawing these headless, armless people. But I just wanted to focus on the torso specifically and then just the connection where it connects with the limbs, the arms and the legs. So these are all from reference. And then I just, clearly the reference has a head and has the rest of the arm and the rest of the leg. But I was trying to think in terms of like if these were cut and then what that would look like. And it actually does help, I think, in terms of thinking about what is the form doing. Because for instance, the neck, in this case, it looks kind of flat. But then in this, I try and think like what's closer to us. It's more, I feel like it would be wider in the back, more narrow in the front. So it's more like this triangle shape. And then that helps me think about the form being more solid. In this case, this is kind of round. I feel like it could almost be a bit more flat in the back, but I'm not sure. Maybe it is more rounded. Again, just trying to think about things. And then I continued on with that. I think this one's from Imagination. Doesn't look quite right, but the pose, the gesture is kind of nice. The energy. I think this one's also from Imagination. Actually, I think all of these are from Imagination. So that's something. Maybe not this one. Not sure. The way the shading is done on this feels like maybe even this one. These two feel a bit different. But this has the messiness and the sloppiness that it looks like I was just doing it from Imagination. And then here, it's more of a, okay, think about style and think about how I want to accentuate things and exaggerate things. And this is more of the way I like to draw, super narrow waists and things, but this is more, accurate, I suppose, to reality. So yeah, starting with a more fleshed out torso, but then putting stylized limbs on and a stylized head doesn't really work. Like this doesn't feel good at all to me. And so it really is a case of the more you stylize the head, the more you have to stylize the body, but in the same way, in the same manner, making sure that whatever, like if your face is very simple, the body should be simple too. If your face is very angular, the body should be angular too, or if the head is very angular. Tribute to Costa here. Okay. And here I was doing some hands, some feet studies, realizing again, it's another thing that it's like, well, I don't draw this enough. I've kind of internalized it to a point, but I probably need to use reference. These are all reference to get things more solid. And I guess it was also because I was drawing a lot of these characters with no, cut off arms and heads and legs and things that maybe it's like, I should probably draw what goes at the end of these things. So here, a big beefy character. It's starting to feel a bit more three-dimensional. It's still got work to do, but it is, I feel, a bit more structural. I gave him humongous hands. I started thinking about, well, I really like big hands, and then I thought about it more, and it's kind of, big heads, big hands. The head and the hands are very expressive, and so maybe that's where it comes from, just a desire to convey emotion, and having those as larger means you get to, I guess it causes you to focus more on the things that give off emotions. When I think about anime, a lot of the styles anyway, with the larger eyes, really it's because eyes are, as they say, eyes are the windows to the soul. So you're taking a part that's very expressive, and then you're exaggerating that. You're making it even bigger so that you're giving more importance to that expression. At least, that's what I think. I don't know. I don't know if it's just, some bullshit theory or if it's real. There's a guy here. It's kind of interesting. Super long, stretched out figure. And this guy's kind of funny. Using these shapes usually when I make a mistake. I'll put shapes down to clarify what I actually want to draw. This looks like Bob Meatbag wearing his hat. And this looks like a person from Princeton. This is kind of the face they have, or it's a very common face. It's a mining town, so there's lots of miners, and kind of have these, worn or rugged faces. I think they're pretty cool. Here's this weird ice cream cone thing. I think I was just trying to push the style and try and be, I don't know what I was doing, but yeah. Here I'm thinking a lot about the proportion of these three parts, the head, the ribcage, and the pelvis, and what proportion works for me. And it almost works best in my style anyway, as it is, when the head is roughly about the same size as the ribcage, which, is not accurate at all, with the head being the same size as the ribcage. However, kind of works. So finding out things about your style as you develop it. There's a lot of these revelations of, okay, I kind of like this, and even though this is wrong, it feels okay, and then going with that. Here, I was doing some contouring to get a sense of what are the planes doing, and really trying to simplify it into two, I suppose 4 planes. If you think of a box having 6 sides, and then the sides of it would be, the top, side, back, the other side. Thinking of it simplified like that. Here, like a foot, understanding that this calf muscle comes out, and then you have the Achilles tendon, then the heel. Same thing for the wrist. You have this part that's flat, and it's like one plane here, and then another plane here. And things like that, I think are good to study rather than taking this and just making it a tube, like a cylinder. because there is that, simplify the arms and the legs to cylinders. But the more I work on it, the more I feel like that's not necessarily the best way of doing things, to simplify things as a cylinder. It's more to notice that you have this boxy shape, but then there's something else, which is I noticed that it works better if I have a bias towards something like this or like this. So what I mean is, in this case, it's more wide than it is tall. And in this case, it's more tall than it is wide. And thinking about the wrist, for instance, and thinking, okay, this shape, is it more wide than tall or more tall than wide? And it feels like, well, it's more wide than it is tall. And so I found that it helps for stylization and exaggeration purposes when you think of things this way, in terms of, things being more pushed one to another, and then it, like, in one direction or another, either it's more wide or it's more tall, and then you exaggerate that. So if it's tall, make it taller. If it's wide, make it wider. So trying that out with the skull, for instance, see, it's much more tall from the front view here, and then much more wide from the side view. And then here, trying to figure out a pelvis. It's not great, but going into trying to simplify these quicker, make it so I don't have to spend so much time on it. Because I mean, clearly I'm not going to go to all this detail. A lot of these, and this is a pretty bad study anyway, but a lot of these things with, drawing bones and anatomy and muscles, they're very complicated, and that's not really what you want or even what you need to get something across that looks right. It's more a sense of, first of all, does it feel like it exists in three-dimensional space? And then does it generally look right in terms of anatomy? Does it look like it makes sense? Can it move? And if you have those, you don't have to be perfect, because you'll still be able to get the point across. And so rather than, go all super complicated, and I've seen a lot of tutorials or people who teach all the little bones and muscles, but it's something where I don't think you can hold, or at least most people I don't think can hold that much information in their minds and then produce something from imagination. Whereas if you have more of a simple figure, then what you can focus on is, okay, what are they doing? And you can draw from imagination, and you can create cool poses. And then, as long as it kind of looks right, it'll be fine. Because, we do that. See, even these faces of, I guess they're Xeon, but like the eye is not accurate. And, where's the tear duct? It's kind of here, but it's not indicated. The things aren't perfect, but it's enough to get an idea. And that's what's really strong, being able to capture an idea and then convey that to someone else. So when they look at it, they think, oh, I get it. I get the expression this person has. I get the feeling that you were aiming for. More sort of affinity things. And then playing around with shapes here, letting things, again, go much more rounded than I would have before. And then here, I was just playing around with thumbnails, so just compositions. I'll do this every now and then just to keep it up, I guess. Kind of like this one. It's got some movement. When I do these, I think a lot in terms of you have a frame, and then you want something to be interesting within this. So for instance, in this case, he's holding something. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm thinking in terms of, is the positive space, the area that's shown, does that make an interesting negative space? And here it kind of does, where you've got, this, it's all diagonal. It's not straight up and down and boring. He's not just standing here. It's thinking of the thing on the page, the frame, as its own piece. So if this was abstract and you filled all the whole figure and the hand and whatever, you filled that all in black, would it still look interesting as a design? And if it does, that's good. In this case, see, this hand's up close, so the perspective's focusing on it, but it kind of gets lost a bit. So That's why I made the clothing dark to highlight this, but I don't think that's necessarily good as a silhouette. I'm not sure. Yeah, more stuff. A thing like this is supposed to be, I think, an alleyway where, this is the street, and these are buildings. Maybe that's a trash can, and that's a light passage. Like, that's the city, I guess, that you see through between the buildings. Again, a lot of these things, some of these don't make much sense at all. I mean, they kind of make sense to me. It's like, yeah, you've got a figure here, and they're floating, and there's this energy things going around. But it's not so much that as it is just practice with shapes, with making interesting things. See, I think this one's pretty weak, especially compared to most of them. This is quite weak. It's just a character standing there, not much interest. This one's a bit stronger, but yeah, this guy's head is cut off, so that's bad framing. Kind of like a bad photographer. If you think of the scene and then you think of a cameraman or someone who's a photographer and they're capturing the scene, what would be an interesting thing for them to capture? Sometimes, I mean, if you are visual, I suppose you could close your eyes and imagine your scene and then move around that scene as if you're a photographer or a cameraman or a director, and just, which scene did you find and what was cool about it, or what was interesting, or what was captivating, whatever you were going for. Kind of like this how you've got the forehead and you've simplified this, but then there's a very minor indication of the features. And I think that works quite well. In this case, I wanted a simple form. See, it goes to the nose and then go up and then down. So yeah. And here, I was thinking more in terms of props. So you've got like just making up objects and thinking about them again in terms of shapes. Like, how do I design them to be interesting? I didn't really like this one. It feels like it's going to fall over. It doesn't feel like it's got a good center of gravity. This one's okay. And this one, and just thinking about little, flourishes, areas of detail. Maybe it's got some trim, but then the trim just doesn't go straight around. It's got like a little pattern thing. And then, you've got these little, it's got a rope or something, a string tied around it. And then I guess just thinking about detail, which is something I don't usually think about because I'm not a huge fan of detail, really, but it does help when it's used very carefully. So the important thing is to make sure there's not details everywhere. It's like, okay, on this edge, there's detail, and then an area of rest, and then an area of detail, and then a bigger area of rest, and then, again, areas of detail. So separating the detail with rest, that's the way to go, as far as I think. So yeah, drawing more, heads, faces, allowing myself to do whatever I want to do. And I think it's working. There's always this fear that if I just draw what I want to draw, I'm going to stagnate, or I'm going to become, I don't know, a bad artist somehow. I'm not going to push myself. I'm going to get stuck in my comfort zone. And maybe that's true for some people, but I found it's kind of like positive reinforcement. For some people, it makes them have a really big ego and they work less because they've got compliments. But for me, it's always made me work harder because I feel like, oh, cool, you like this. Well, I want to do another one. I want to get that feeling again. So I actually work harder with positive reinforcement and actually do more when I draw what I want to draw. And I think I do a better job than when I'm forcing it all the time. More Xeon stuff, some row. Okay. And here again, I think I've drawn this figurine. I have Black Heart. Just drew her here, and then here, and here. And then these ones, and here. And then these are from imagination, the rest of them. I don't know if it helped, but it was something. Definitely feel like when I see a figure in 3 dimensions, I get a lot more out of it than if I'm looking at a 2D drawing that someone else did. But yeah, so coming up next, more experimentation. But the style, I think, is getting much more solid as we progress, and definitely we'll have some insights about that. So hope you got something out of this, and thanks for watching.